believe we are live this morning. Thanks to all of you come out. Thanks to you who view the streams. A little bit of an issue with the mic, but I think we've got it going now. Appreciate you. Pray that you've had a blessed day in the Lord. We are in the book of Isaiah again this morning, Isaiah chapter 66, and we are looking at this fact of for I know. That's actually what I titled the message this morning, for I know. Knowledge is an interesting thing. It really is. You see, knowledge changes things. For example, just try to help you understand this thing of knowledge. I think we can all get this. When we're a little baby, we may not understand something being hot. Obviously, we try to explain it to the little baby. Don't touch it, it's hot. Food goes in the freezer maybe to cool it off, or put ice in it or something. And when we're pulling out something out of an oven or somewhere else and we know that it's going to be hot, we're trying to use some kind of holders, maybe pot holders or something similar that will keep you from being burned, because we realize that it's hot. Why, knowledge has taught us that we don't want to touch something that's hot. And probably in our lives, at some point, that has happened to us. And that's how we've gained that knowledge. Or maybe we just managed to not touch it all of our lives and just realize that it's hot. But I remember when I was growing up, now this may have happened more than once, but I remember this time very well because it was very painful. I was getting down some things from above the stove. There was a cabinet there at that time. It's not there anymore at my parents' house. And I was getting something down. I believe it was a game or something that was stored up there. And as I was getting it down, I kind of put my hand down to steady myself. And I managed to put my hand upon a burner that, though it was off, was still quite hot. And it was very, very painful. Besides, it immediately started causing a blister. I put ice on it, tried to do everything I could. It hurt like crazy. I remember, I think it was on it might have been on a Wednesday, because I know we went to church, I think either that day or the next day, so maybe it was a Saturday. And we go to church, and the pastor of the church, Brother Mann, he's now retired, he's much older, but he was the pastor at the time, and we went over to his house, and he had a plant that dealt with burns, and you probably know of it, the alveoli plant, but he went and put some of that little juice on my hand from that plant, just squeezed it right out of the plant. He actually had plants growing there, and it actually really, really helped. I'll be honest, took the pain away relatively quickly, but that was an interesting experience. Not one that I would want to repeat, not one that we did on purpose, but there is knowledge that a burner is hot and will burn you. All right, let's use something a little more along the lines of, let's get away from the physical, so to speak. The physical being things you can touch. Things. Let's talk about things of knowledge that we know about relationships. All right, this is an important subject, obviously. Many people have issues in their relationships. There's things there. But there's knowledge that comes from it. You see, I can assure you that there are certain things that will be damaging to your relationship. Why? I've seen knowledge of it. If you want to hurt a relationship very badly, just get into a fight with the other person. Punch them into the face a few times, put some bruises, some cuts on them. I assure you it will be very damaging to your relationship. Besides, there'll be only be a few things that might happen. One will be that you'll never see them again because they run away, or two, they'll be frightened of you probably for the rest of their life and be a little uncertain of what you're going to do. It will be very damaging to your relationship. If you're constantly criticizing someone and never lifting them up, you'll find it be very damaging to your relationship. They probably won't want to talk to you very often. Why? Because they'll think you're very critical and they won't want to come around. Someone's always mean to someone and always saying hateful things, and guess what? It's going to be damaging to your relationship. You say, how do we know that? Well, we've seen that. I've seen that in people's lives. Something that we're aware of. There are things that we learn, things that we know. And that knowledge helps us to make more informed decisions. Sometimes that helps a person make bad decisions. Say, what do you mean by that? Well, there's a thing that we've tried to do in America. It was kind of the big slogan, if you want to go back about 20 years ago. And it was this idea that if we could just educate people, if they were just educated, that they wouldn't do as many crimes, that they would make better decisions. And so we attempted to do this. We attempted to pour education, knowledge, if you would, into these people's lives. Because we were going to reduce crime and we were going to make things better and people would understand. But I want to tell you what happened. It didn't work. You say, what do you mean it didn't work? They know better now. Well, let me tell you what happened. They didn't stop the criminals. They just made smart ones. So now, all you have is an educated criminal is still a criminal. He's just a smart one. So now he knows how to get away with things a little better than he did before. You know, take for example the guy that steals something, and it beeps. He's going out the door at the store, and they're scanning. They catch him. Well, guess what? The next time, a little more sneaky about it. Maybe he takes the label off, the whole barcode, or maybe he switches. It's been common. I'm not promoting this. I'm just saying these are very common tactics people use. Let me switch the tags. Pay a lower price for something. We try to walk out with it scanned, it'll work. You see, I'm not promoting these things. I'm telling you these are things that happen. These are things that happen with knowledge. So knowledge can be both good and bad. All right, I want to make sure that we get this before we get into this. So look at Isaiah chapter 66 and verse number 18. Verse 18 of Isaiah chapter 66, we're going to find out that God knows. Because here's what it says. For I know their works and their thoughts. Now I thought about just titling the message, For I know their works and their thoughts. But then I thought, you know what? For I know is so much better. Because not only does God know our thoughts and our works, but we know. Just look what it says as he goes along. For I know their works and their thoughts. It shall come that I will gather all nations and tongues, and they shall come and see my glory. All right? God knows it. But I want to tell you what he knew about. Because verse 17 says this. This is the verse before. Usually I read them in order, but this time I wanted us to get what God knew. Because in verse 17, it says, They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the garden, behind one's tree in the mist, eating swine's flesh and the abomination of the mouse, shall be consumed together, saith the Lord. You get it? God knew what was going on. And I want to tell you this morning that God knows. He knows your works. He knows your thoughts. He knows. And he knows exactly the intent why you are doing something. For example, why is it that a person is out this morning coming to church, watching the stream? What is the purpose for? Is it to find out about God? I would hope that's it, but for a lot of people, that's not really it. Is it to feel better about your life? It's common knowledge that if you go to a church, you'll likely feel better about your life. You went to church, you were there. What is the purpose for you this morning? Not only you can answer that question, but God knows. He knows exactly the thoughts of our life. He knows our works. He knows exactly what's going on. Why you do what you do, God knows. God knows. Why you go to a certain place. Why you do a certain thing. You know, I talked a little bit about some things right off the bat. You know, I talked about touching a hot burner. Obviously, that was very unintentional. But I'll be honest this morning, there's a lot of people where it's not unintentional. It's not. You know, so many people that have gotten involved in cutting, you know, in various forms. Sometimes it's, you know, with paper clip. Knew someone where it was with a eraser. They get involved into cutting. You know, they're constantly doing things or hurting themselves, putting marks in their body. Happens with burns. People burn themselves on purpose. Sometimes it's intentionally touching a hot pan or a burner, or sometimes it's with a lighter. Well, I've seen that too, heard about it, seen it even. Person burned his finger, see who could hold a cigarette the longest, burned his finger pretty badly. A big blister on his finger. It's like, what happened? You see it. It happens. People hurt themselves. God knows, for I know their thoughts and their works. God knows exactly why you do so. He knows whether or not it was an accident or not, whether it was on purpose. What about that issue with relationships I talked about? Because this is a really big one. This issue with relationships. God knows exactly why you do something to another person. You know? See, there are a lot of people that might even actually do things that we would say are good. Maybe they do a nice deed, kind word or something, give them a gift. But in reality, it's to cover up their real intentions. You know, it might be just in it to try to get their money. Or they might be in it to cover up what they're doing. You know, they're giving them gifts and puffing them up, but behind their back they're running around. They're giving these things to throw off the suspicion of what's actually really happening. Because behind their back they're doing all kinds of things. Cheating. Stealing things, maybe. You know, people do things to hide suspicion. Talked about the people in the store, you know, that are doing things to get away. It looks like they're there to shop. It looks like they're there to build the business. But in reality, they're doing things. They're stealing things. They're switching tags. They're doing different things. Why? They're trying to appear good by doing other things. What about your relationship with God? See, I think this is probably one of the silliest of them all. When you try to be deceptive about your spiritual life. Because in honesty, God knows. See, one of the silliest things that we could do is to live a hypocritical life in our spiritual life with God. You see, whether or not you attend church this morning, or whether or not you listen to a live stream, possibly someone will listen to that as a video further down the road, very likely. No matter whether or not you tell people, you know what, I go to so-and-so a church, this is my pastor, you know, this is their stream, watch it from time to time, maybe listen to it after the fact, maybe I watch it while it's going. No matter what you do, if you present a life that's hypocritical in the spiritual, you are doing one of the most dangerous things of all. Because God already knows. God knows your heart, knows exactly why you're doing it. If you're doing it for the praise of men more than the praise of God, God knows about it. What it tells us in John chapter 5 is a very interesting thing that Jesus says. He says, how can ye believe that receive honor one from another? Seek not the honor that cometh from God alone. You see, there's two types of honor this morning. This is important. There's two types of honor. The one type of honor is the one that men will give you. The one that men will give you. The one that people will say, you know what, he does a good thing. Yeah, he's got some issues going on, but for the most part, he's a pretty good guy. He's a pretty nice guy. She's a pretty good girl. You know, they got some problems here and there, but for the most part, you know, they're all right. Family life, got some issues here and there. Mostly goes all right. Got a job. They're at work most of the time. They do a pretty fair job. They're all right. It's the honor that comes from man. Because, yeah, they're fine. You ask them about the spiritual life. Oh, yeah, he's fine or she's fine. They go to church, you know. Maybe they lead this song leading. Maybe he teaches Sunday school. He just comes to church. He's fine. She's fine. They're all good. That's the honor that comes from man. All right, it says, oh, yeah, they're fine. Look at them. They're doing all right. I want to tell you something, that honor is from the world. What does God have to say about your life? That's the important thing. For I know their thoughts, saith the Lord. You know what he says? He says, and they shall come and see my glory. See, I want to tell you about the honor that comes from God. It brings glory to the Lord. And not only that, it helps us to see his glory. You know how easy it is to miss the work of God? You know how easy it is? It's real simple. Don't live your life close to God and you'll miss it. You'll miss it. God does amazing things all the time. One of the amazing things that he did this today, you probably haven't even thought about, was he helped you to get out of bed this morning. Thank the Lord. He made this live stream available for you so that you could listen to it. Made this church available so you could come to church. Why, those are blessings of God. And if you ate something this morning, God blessed you with the ability to have something to eat and to drink. And thank the Lord this morning, and some people aren't as blessed, but you know, we can use both of our hands, we can use both of our legs, we can see God's helped us, he's blessed us. God's working in our lives. Those are very simple things that we can often miss, but how about the even more things that you might have to open your eyes a little bit to see? Get your eyes on God and see, you know what? God's doing things. You know, just the other day, you could miss it. You could miss it if you just didn't look real close. Most of you wouldn't be aware of this situation. My wife would have been. But my dad was at Norton's Hospital. He needed to get to rehab. It looked like the only way was for my brother to take him. And my brother wasn't sure he could get off work. They were kind of shorthanded. Somebody had already taken off that day. And he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to get it approved to leave. And wasn't exactly sure what we were going to do. Obviously, there's talk about maybe call relatives, see somebody. But I'm going to tell you what happened. The next day, God in his amazing grace, what happened? One of my dad's pastor friends, Dad knows very well, they call each other, they talk to each other. You know what he does? He goes over and picks my dad up, takes him to rehab. Why? Because God's working. Oh, it would be easy to miss, but God worked something out. looked like it wasn't going to work out. God does things. He works things out. Somehow, when it doesn't seem like it's going to work, somehow it does. It doesn't seem like the budget's going to balance. You look at the bank, you look at the bills, you say it's never going to work. Somehow it does. God works it out. Works in our lives. It's an amazing thing. You could miss it. Really see. Your eyes on the things of the world could miss the glory of God. You know, it would be a very sad thing to do those things that I talked about, to get involved into some of the cutting and the burning and all the other things. It's a serious problem in our society. That would be a very big thing, hard thing to deal with. It would be a hard thing to deal with an abusive relationship where someone wasn't treating someone right, where you couldn't trust them, and all the other things. But what would be the most hard would be to live a life of hypocrisy. Look what these guys are doing. It says, they pure themselves in the garments of swine's flesh. Well, swine flesh wouldn't mean too much to us, but that was an abomination to the Jews. They weren't supposed to do it. They weren't supposed to be involved in it. All the abominations. On the mouse, they said, oh, we're God's people. But when they were outside the temple, they're outside the synagogue, here they are out doing all the unclean and filth of the world. God says, I'll consume them because I know their thoughts. But you know what was even more sad is they were going to miss the glory of God. Sometimes I've thought so many times, people could just get a glimpse. If they could just see, if they could just know the glory of God and the wonder of it, what they're missing. You see, a lot of people talk about the things they gave up. You know, the things that they have to stop. You know, I can't smoke, I can't drink, I can't live in a life of sensuality. Got to give up all of these things. I got to dress certain weird ways and all of these things. No. You're not giving up anything, my friend. You're gaining everything. Because the glory of God is far greater than any of those things. To see God reach into his circumstance, and his wonderful hand just work it all together. Fit all the puzzle pieces together. You see, the problem in our lives is without God, the puzzle pieces don't fit together. I don't know if you ever tried to do a puzzle before, and I'm coming to a close here, but I don't know if you ever tried to do a puzzle before. When I was young, I used to love puzzles. Did them all the time. My mom and I would do puzzles together. I always enjoyed a good puzzle. It was fun to me. I know my wife's not quite as excited about it, but it was fun to me. But you know what always made a puzzle frustrating? This happened so many times. Is when there was a piece missing. Or when there were multiple pieces missing. And all of a sudden the puzzle doesn't quite fit right. It doesn't quite work. The picture's distorted. I'll tell you, that's a man's life or a woman's life without God. There's too many pieces missing. Too many critical pieces missing, because the most critical piece, God, is missing. It doesn't quite work out. The picture's distorted. The life is kind of shifting. Things don't quite fit together. A lot of things happen, and we're like, what is going on? What's going on in my life? Things are falling apart. You probably heard someone say that. I don't know what's going on anymore. It's because the puzzle pieces aren't quite fitting together right. For I know their thoughts, saith the Lord, in their works. God knows your intentions this morning. Are you living for him? You're living for God. Have you given him your life? Are your puzzle pieces fitting together right? Is God the master? I pray that he is. That you've seen the wonder of God. in His glory. It's a wonderful thing to know God. Thanks to all of you who come out. Thanks to you, the streams. We appreciate your support. Pray that you have a wonderful afternoon of the Lord. Be prayed up, blessed up, and ready to go. Have a wonderful day.